This is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you think it is, that I come and congratulate you for receiving such an honor. Nor do you consider it a musibah that I may come and console you. So there's no reason for me to really be mingling with you and standing with you and going along with you. So Imam disregarded that. Third is the inqilab by Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, also known as Nafse Zakiyah. That took place in the year 145 after Hijrah. This is like 3 years prior to the Shahadat of 6th Imam. Of course, in the year 136, when Mansur ascends to the power, Mansur al-Tawaniqi that is, he started a new wave of oppression and killing. Nafs Zakiyah, just like Zayd ibn Ali, became frustrated with all these atrocities that are happening. And I'll tie into the atrocities that are happening today in our surrounding as well. He became frustrated and decided to take a stand against Mansur. Imam stopped him. And Imam stopped his father and warned him that the result would be unwell. You know, there have been instances in the past, but you won't even make any, you won't even scratch the surface. Now, of course, this is not where, you should get the idea that we should not do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. That is not what is being said over here. Imam was working in a way where it would be beneficial for the masses. And therefore, this movement would not survive, and for that reason, Imam wanted to stop. Not that we should ever neglect Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. No, that wajib still remains. But of course, this is coming from Imam al-Ma'soom, so there's hikmah behind it. Which hikmah you and I cannot say. If Imam al-Ma'soom is not here to tell us that do this or don't do this, we're going to go ahead and assume that this is something which is our duty, and we'll go ahead and do it. So don't conflate the two things, that this is where Imam is stopping someone from doing what is called Nahi anil Munkar. No, Imam has stopped his father and warned him of the results as well. But he made Medina the center of inqilab, got himself killed. His son Ali was killed in Egypt. His other son Abdullah was killed in Sindh, Abdullah Shawrazi, that's where he's buried. His other son was arrested in Yemen and killed. His brother was poisoned in Morocco, and that's how the entire family was wiped out. Imam was aware of what is going to happen, so Imam stopped him. So therefore we see that these are the three main inqilabat that took place in the time during the imamat of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. Under this, I want to read for you the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. You all know this. The first and the second and the third. Now there's some amendments that we know more than we know the other ones. I don't know if anyone knows the 9th Amendment or the 8th Amendment, but we know the 5th one, we know the 3rd one, we know the 1st one. We know the 2nd one, to bear arms, and all these other ones that are important, that are always in the news. The First Amendment is the very basic one. You learn that in American history. You go through school, you learn that. You have to take the immigration exam, you take that. You have to memorize all of these things, so we know what the First Amendment says. Peaceful protests, as you can hear, are happening at university campuses across the United States, are now being labeled as anti-Semitic gatherings. House and Senate, and these are all just news that I'm reading for you, so nothing made up. They passed a $95 billion bill to reinforce the U.S. support to Israel and ban social media app where its critics are the loudest. So of course, media is in your control. Social media is very difficult to control it. Now you're going to go ahead and silence the social media. The legislation attached the measure to ban some of these apps, which I don't personally endorse. For example, TikTok and so on. With more funding for Israel's Gaza onslaught and stalling war in Ukraine, and for Taiwan to pump up a Cold War with China. This is again all news, nothing that is hidden from us. And you'll find this even in mainstream media. As the Pentagon provides Israel with more weaponry and urge a Mosul, Iraq-style mass demolition in Rafah, protests encampments at college campuses are erupting nationwide. And I'm sure you've been following the news. In the face of evictions from student housing, arrests, threats of bringing the National Guard, and more repression for students are standing strong for the Palestinian people is taking place as we speak. We have seen hundreds of arrests over the past few days. Netanyahu tried to divert the public's view and attention by ill-informed attack at the embassy in Syria, which resulted, of course, in retaliation, and that was all done dragging the world into another worldwide conflict, but of course, he remained unsuccessful in that. All of these things are something which is, I don't even need to tell you, this is something which is happening all around us. What happened to that First Amendment? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble in peaceful manner. So when we say by making up a cartoon and by burning a book, you are, sending a message to 1.6 or 7 billion people in the world, so well, Muslims need to chill because they need to take a joke, easily. This is not to go ahead and, you create any sort of anger, but this is freedom of speech. Anyone can say anything about your book. Anyone can say anything about your prophet. Anyone can say and associate anything regarding your religion, and that is all covered under freedom of speech. So you can go ahead and do things which will upset over 2 billion people, or just shy of 2 billion people in the world. But you can't criticize a government which is in front of the entire ummah, or in front of the entire world, for the last 6 months is going on this onslaught. And the moment you criticize, right away the label of anti-Semitism comes into play. Throw it all under the rug of anti-Semitism. These protests that are happening in all of these different college campuses are now under the label of anti-Semitic. All these people, although they are themselves Jews, who are standing up with other fellow human beings against this atrocity, so irony is those Jews are also anti-Semitic now. That you need to decipher, and that you need to explain that to me. So there was a beautiful discussion where we all get lost in many of these things that are happening, and this is done systematically, so that you increase your attention into one area, then you start forgetting about the other things. You're going to be focused on that which is right in front of you right now. And that was the effort that was done 2 weeks ago with this attack that was done at the embassy. That was done so that divert the attention from the internal conflict that is happening in Israel itself. And to divert people's attention from the pressure that was gaining and being asserted on the Western governments. All that was done. And they were successful in that, because then they became the victim. But then now, when these college students who are taught in these universities their rights, and they're informed and they're educated, while they're using their education to go ahead and speak out against something which they see does not fit in their minds and it is incorrect, now they're all anti-Semitics. And this is something which is inappropriate. All this, while this was happening, there were many lies which you and I are not even thinking about. Because we've already gone past all of that. But they're so ingrained and engraved into our minds and the minds of the masses, where we see that people have forgotten about all of those things. On Zeteo, there was a very neat article that highlighted 7 lies by the Israeli officials since October 7th. 7 lies. Lie number one. There was already a ceasefire on October 6th. Hamas broke it, and therefore October 7th took place. What ceasefire? There was a report since the beginning of 2023 until October 7th, over 2,000 Palestinians have been killed. Many more had been arrested. Just 2 weeks before October 7th, Israeli airstrikes hit Gaza for the 3rd time or the 3rd day in a row. So there was no ceasefire prior to October 7th. Lie number 2. The priority is freeing the hostages. You hear that all the time?
Yeah.
And so what about the hostages on the other side? Well, they're not hostages. Those are terrorists. Our army personnel and our people are hostages, but yours, they are what? They're enemies, and they are terrorists.
Yeah.
There you go. Easily you can go ahead and label whoever, whatever you want. So, first priority was what? Freeing the hostages. Even President Biden out of the same concern. But slowly the narrative changed, and Hamas must be defeated. Willingly or unwillingly, the Israeli military has actually killed more Israeli hostages than its soldiers have rescued thus far. And again, this is all in the news. This is not something which is hidden. That's the beauty of where we live. Lie number 3. Do you all remember 40 beheaded babies? That was the very beginning of all the conflict. Why? This notion of bringing babies into picture and children who are helpless and cannot do anything to defend themselves, and they were beheaded mercilessly and killed right away. It's going to go ahead and melt your heart. You're not going to think twice who, what, when, where. Has to be condemned. A lie that went viral and was repeated by the President of the United States, who falsely said he saw pictures of the beheaded babies. First of all, it was a lie, then he saw the pictures of the beheaded babies, even though there weren't any. 40 beheaded babies is just a cynical, reckless, repulsive lie that was then used to justify the killing of hundreds of Palestinian babies till this day. You see how you develop, you have this muqaddimah, the prelude, to go ahead and do whatever it is that you want. Lie number 4. There was a Hamas base underneath Al-Shifa Hospital. Remember that? Was there any outcome of that? Were they able to produce that there were bases in underneath the hospitals? And they were actually active underneath these tunnels? And they were doing all of this? No. You just need to throw one piece of information into mainstream media. Everyone will run after that news. And you believe it as if it is word of God. Remember this video from the Israeli military claiming Hamas main headquarters were under the hospital. Meanwhile, the Washington Post said underground rooms found by Israel showed no immediate evidence of any military used by Hamas, and Israel has provided no hard evidence that these were being used. But of course, the lie was pitched, used by all the mainstream media, and to go ahead and mislead people. Number 5, lie number 5. You can't trust the Hamas health ministry. They're lying to us as well. I won't even comment on that. Lie number 6. There's no hunger in Gaza. People are not dying of hunger. This is all fake news and false narratives. And it is a lie, obviously. According to the World Food Program, 4 out of 5 of the hungriest people in the world right now are in Gaza. 4 out of 5. The humanitarian crisis, malnutrition, famine, whatever you want to call it, all of that is something which is in front of our eyes. And lie number 7, the Gazans getting killed today are the ones who elected this Hamas onto themselves. They're the real reason why, so they should be killed, because they elected such a group of people who are the cause of this entire conflict, because everything began on October 7th. They voted for them. Again, it's a lie, which you and I are not going to go ahead and research. But the researchers have shown that half the population of Gaza are kids under the age of 18. Most of them weren't even born when the last elections took place in Gaza nearly 2 decades ago. And even in 2006, the legislative elections, Hamas didn't win a majority of the votes cast in Gaza. So again, all of this is purely based on concocted lies by the machinery of that time, Banu Umayyah, and the today's Banu Umayyah who are doing this. So again and again, the government, and we keep on reiterating this fact, nor we have to, but we keep on reiterating this fact, that this has nothing to do with the Jews. This has to do with that government which is causing all this mayhem. This has nothing to do with the Jews. Why, if that was the case, then why would the Jews, with hundreds and thousands of them, would be standing and speaking for humanity and getting arrested? As I said, now those Jews are being called as what? Anti-Semitic themselves. So it's the government, Israeli government, and its supporters in the West, along with the media. They control, tell brazen, shameless lies about the war and mislead American public. So of course, this is something which is unfolding right in front of our eyes. We are first-hand witness of all the atrocities that are happening. Now it has unfolded to the extent that when people are standing up for the rights of others and speaking out, they are now being arrested. And of course, everything can easily be labeled as anti-Semitic, and therefore nobody will object to that. Of course, there's duty for all of us. We continue to pray for the people of Gaza. We continue to raise our voices for the people of Gaza. We continue to call what is wrong, wrong, and we continue to stand behind those who are oppressed in the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to fulfill our duty in this day and inshallah the days to come. In the hadith wa ablag al-mu'minat kitab Allah a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim wal 'asri inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr.